But I'm delighted now to introduce someone, a senator from Queensland. He was very much associated with the overthrow of Tony Abbott and the installation of Malcolm Turnbull. But here's the great story. He is now down here in Sydney campaigning for Tony Abbott, and that says so much about both Tony Abbott and the man I'm delighted to have on the show, Senator James McGrath. James McGrath, welcome to Outsiders.
It's great to be on Outsiders.
It's great to have you here. You're out there door-knocking with Tony Abbott. As I said, that says fantastic things about both you and he. How's it going out there on the ground?
Look, it's going to be tight. In Warringah, we've got this fake candidate, Zali Steggall, running, who's pretending to be a Liberal. She's not a Liberal. She's not a soft-L Liberal. She is left-wing. This is a person who has never voted Liberal at a federal election. So that means, ladies and gentlemen, she's voted for Paul Keating. That means she's voted for Mark Latham before his conversion, Kim Beazley, Kevin Rudd and Julie Gillard. She's never voted for, say, John Howard or Malcolm Turnbull. She is a fake. We've got Tony Abbott. And as you mentioned, there's been some, as Tony says, some water under the bridge between Tony and I, but I know he's a brilliant local MP. And what I want to say to the Liberal voters in Warringah, Mrs Thatcher, misquoting Mrs Thatcher here, Mrs Thatcher once said, don't just hope for a better future, vote for a better future. Don't just hope we're going to stop Bill Shorten. We've got to vote to stop Bill Shorten. Don't think by voting for Ms Steggall you can park your vote there and feel good about yourself. You vote for her, you vote for Zali Steggall, Bill Shorten becomes Prime Minister.
Absolutely. Now, we've had a bit of, there is some criticism of Zali Steggall on the kind of hypocrisy front. First of all, I just want to get your thoughts before we show some clips on Get Up. Now, we heard earlier on the previous show the argument that, oh, Get Up's not such a big deal after all. What's your thoughts on that, James, seeing them on the ground?
This is complete, I'm not allowed to swear, it is complete bull. Get Up are there. Get Up are supporting her. She knows they're supporting her. They're all out there in their I'm colourblind, turquoise, aqua shirts. They're out campaigning for her. And this is how far it goes. I'm going to hold this document up, just here. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's called Winning Warringah. Now, this was released in December. You want to see my face here? In December, and it was given to Steggall, and she took it home and she had a look through it, and she decided, yes, this is my plan to be elected. And everything in this document is what she's using in her campaign plan. These people behind this document, they went to John Eales, Jane Carrow, a local councillor, a local mayor, because Labor are behind this, Get Up are behind this. They want to stop Tony Abbott from being re-elected, and we've got Steggall running, and she is a fake. She's not an environmentalist.
Well, let's have a look at a couple of graphs. Yes. James, you want to introduce these bits?
Well, yeah, so, we know she's not an environmentalist because I think she pretty much admitted it. And I thought what I personally loved was that bit of the debate where she talked about, I think we have a clip, where she talked about, does she drive an electric vehicle? Do we have that clip?
Yep.
Let's have a look.
I would like to drive an electric vehicle, but I do have to carry 5 kids around, and I cannot afford I'm not even sure if there is any 7-seater that exists in Australia. So there are so many people like me who want to be able to do more, but our government needs to put in place the policies and the actions that facilitate that.
Well, now, I did a little research into this. Number one, she doesn't have 5 kids living at home. She's got 3, as I understand it. But number 2, there is a Jaguar I-Pace. There is an electric vehicle. It's cost about $100,000 to $120,000, which is chump change if you're a barrister living on the North Shore.
All cars are going to cost that in 10 years.
That's what every car is going to cost. So
there's
she could certainly have that.
7-seater hybrids, aren't there? I mean, if you are...
But this is a fully electric. She could have a fully electric SUV.
She's got a gas
to tote
guzzler.
the kids around.
How important
is
it, James, that a candidate actually lives up to their
very important.
ideals?
Zali Steggall is a fake. She's saying to people, do as I say, not as I do. And this is a classic example. There are 7-seaters out there. And so she's adopted this persona out of this plan here because that's how she thinks she can win the seat. She's a complete fake. And I'm saying to Liberal voters there, don't be swayed by her. She's not one of us.
We've also got a clip of Zali Steggall's explaining why, as well as not having electric vehicles, she doesn't have solar panels. Let's have a listen.
This is a fair question, Zali Steggall. You don't have solar panels at home, for example?
I don't currently.
Just explain why not.
Because the irony, I was in the process of doing it when I launched this campaign, and I suspected a cynical press may well think that there was something at play if I did that. So, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
That just leaves me breathless. James?
Oh, I mean, it just you know. Well, I meant to do it. I had it all set up, but then I didn't want to do it because I was running as an environmentalist. I mean, what sort of dog ate my solar panel Holbrook is that? You know?
It doesn't even make any sense. I mean, even I've got solar panels, and from what I understand, I'm a hippie. Well, I'm more of an environmentalist than Zali is, because I would never drive a gas guzzler like she does, because I would not pay that much for petrol, and I certainly have solar panels. And she did major renovations at her house. I mean, I would have thought that would be a pretty good opportunity to whack some solar panels in if you are an environmentalist who thinks we need these dramatic climate change policies.
2 years ago, 2017, my understanding is, and Ms Stegall can come out and deny this, she spent hundreds of thousands of dollars renovating her house, but couldn't find the money to put some solar panels on the roof. She's a fraud, she's a fake. And I'm going to call her out also, she's lying about GetUp. She has to be called to account on this.
Now, we saw a poll in the Sydney Morning Herald we mentioned earlier in the show, a poll saying that Tony's finished, it's all over. GetUp poll, sponsored by GetUp. How much credibility should we give that?
I don't give it any credibility, but what it does show to the people in Warringah that I think it is a tight contest there, because GetUp are putting so many people into the seat to support her. So I don't want Liberal voters just to think, oh, we'll vote for her because she's sort of nice and soft and talks about cuddly koalas. This election is about Bill Shorten and stopping him from becoming Prime Minister.
Now, you're a Queensland Senator. Tell us about Adani. What's going on there? Because it's on, it's off. Labor's going to cancel it. They're not going to cancel it. It's 5 years away for the blue-throated, black-throated Finch to get his act together. What's going on?
The state Labor in Queensland, their latest idea was for Adani to go and count every bird over about 45,000 hectares. Count every bird of this deep-throated black finch. So you can have an army of people out there chasing these little birds around, which, by the way, you can
terrifying them.
Terrifying them. Yeah. You can buy in pet shops. You can go online to buy these birds because they're that endangered. Adani is about jobs. It is about jobs for Central Queensland and North Queenslanders. 14,500 people have registered to work for Adani. A third of them are long-term unemployed. And this really hurts. It makes me upset. I can't understand why people in Sydney and Melbourne don't want Queenslanders, regional Queenslanders, to have jobs. This is what it's about.
And let's not forget where the coal's going. It's going to go to India. It's going to be lifting impoverished people out of poverty, giving them a living standard that we take for granted. And if they don't get it from us, they're going to get it elsewhere. They're not going to stop the project. It's just going to stop in Australia.
And there's this soft racism, and I hate using the R word because I'm a massive freedom of speech person, but what Plibersek said about Adani, that you can't trust an Indian company. So if you're an Indian Australian, this is what the Labor Party think about you. You've got Michael Daly saying to Australians of Chinese descent, oh, look, you're taking white people's jobs. Now you've got them sort of doing this whispering campaign against an Indian company who employs so many people who are already in Australia. 300 million people need to be taken out of poverty in India. I mean, that's the best type of foreign aid.
Also, though, isn't this also part of the way that Labor is trying to have a bet each way? You know, they're trying to get Greens votes in the cities, and yet they're also trying to get votes in the bush that want to have jobs and coal mining and all of that. So they don't understand anymore whether they're representing the working man and woman or whether they are sneering at the working man and woman, essentially.
Enter stage left Bill Shorten. He says one thing in Mackay and Townsville to a different thing down in Melbourne. And we can't have someone as a Prime Minister who doesn't have a central set of values and morals of where he wants this country to go and be. He's just driven by focus groups, this guy.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
can I just ask about some of the really ugly things we've seen during this campaign? We talked about Tony's posters being defaced by those vile slurs. We've now got Sarah Henderson, excuse me, who had a supporter had a poster of her in her yard. And apparently her dog was shot and put by the poster. I've got a quote here from Scott Morrison saying one of her supporters had a poster in her yard. Someone shot her dog, put the body of the dog below her sign. This is just appalling. So this is just going into areas that we haven't seen before in Australian politics, where, you know, Nazi imagery on Josh Frydenberg's posters.
Julian Leeser's.
It is just so ugly. Why do you think we've got this climate at the moment?
I blame the left for it. I blame the left for their intolerance of listening to views that are different to them. And you see it, whether it's from the defacing of signs or stealing of signs in Queensland, Phil Thompson up in Townsville, Olivia Roberts who's running in Griffith, their signs get stolen all the time, and you have to keep replacing them. But it goes further than that. You look at those farm invasions, and they actually are home invasions, where the left go into people's properties and terrorise them. This is an indication they don't accept that people have a different view to them, and this is where it's coming from. And the Nazi imagery on Jewish members of parliament is just offensive. I mean, shooting a dog. You know, the left need to be called to account for this.
Well, I mentioned Dr. Brian Fisher. So his Canberra home was vandalised. I think eggs were thrown at his porch. He's terrified. He made, as I said at the opening editorial, his crime was to cost Labor's emissions policies, which Labor won't do themselves. He gets Bill Shorten accusing him of being a kind of unethical doctor, you know, who would say yes to tobacco in the 70s, so that was the analogy. You then got Simon Holmes at court.
Who's a grub? Who's a grub? I'm going to call him out. He's a grub.
That's your opinion. He goes and puts Dr. Fisher's home, photo of his home address.
It's called doxing. When they do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sure enough, within 24 hours, the house has been egged. This is unacceptable in Australia. What is going to happen? Do the police get involved in these things? What happens?
I think everyone's just going to lower the temperature a bit, but it goes back to core principles. And to be fair to both leaders, I don't want to be fair to Sean, but in the debate on Friday, which Scott Morrison clearly won, that they did talk about civility, but it actually has to start with those on the left, because those on the right, we are good-mannered. We do respect people because we fundamentally believe in freedom of speech. And this is a challenge for us in Australia. We've got to bring the left back to the centre so they accept these pillars, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association, to accept them. They're the pillars that underpin Australian society.
But perhaps it would be good to see a little bit more robust debate from the Conservative side, like we see from Trump in the States, where he actually takes it to the left. I'm not talking about shooting dogs or Nazi memorabilia, not that disgusting stuff that we've seen in this campaign in Australia, but where he actually fights back. Do you think we're going to see that more from the Conservative side, where they're going to take the fight and really do everything they can to hold on?
Well, I think so. The Liberal Party is very much leadership focused, and you can see that with Scott Morrison. I can tell you that when I call the base can see that we've got a leader who wants to win the election and has got the energy and is just getting out there, and he's prepared to defend our values. And he talked about that in the debate on Friday night when that lady got up to talk about Christians being persecuted, and he was able to talk to her and say, yes, I agree with you, and yes, we've got to stop this. Scott Morrison is like the Energizer Bunny on steroids at the moment. He is bouncing around this country, and people can see that because he wants to be Prime Minister, not for the ego, but because of what he can do to protect the economy and protect our borders.
Well, James McGrath, great to have you on the show. Really pleased to have you first time on Outsiders. Thank you very much for coming along. Good luck door knocking with Tony Abbott. As I said, it says a great deal about both you and Tony Abbott that you're out there as a unified team together. I don't agree with you about Simon Holmes at court being a grub, but I do agree that he was wrong.
Simon, but
that he was wrong to do what he did, and we do have to lower the tone. Civility is necessary all around. Good luck in the election. You have to win because my reputation is sitting on it, so please do.
Yes.
Thank you very much, James McGrath.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.